Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to House Bill 790. Somebody once said, here we go again. And I'd like to go back to when I first got elected 18 years ago, back in 1995. I was assigned to the Liquor Committee. Governor Ridge had just gotten elected, and soon after he got elected, he gathered the Liquor Committee, and I forget at this point in time who was the chairman. It was either Representative Reiner or Representative Severa. He gathered the Liquor Committee in his conference room on the second floor, and he looked at us and he said, I would like to privatize the state store system. And being a freshman, and being scared to death, at one point I looked at him and I said, Governor, I don't think this is the right thing to do. And for the same reasons that I thought it was the wrong thing to do 18 years ago are the same reasons that I think it's the wrong thing to do today. And I'd like to outline those reasons for you very briefly. First, the employees of the state store system. Make no mistake about it. If this bill gets signed into law, they will lose their jobs. 4,500 Pennsylvanians eventually will lose their jobs. Not all right away. A slow, painful journey to the unemployment line. And what have they done? What have they done to deserve this? They put in an application for a job. Many of them worked part-time at first until they got the real job and got full-time and benefits. They work hard each and every day for the Commonwealth. They do a good job in the state store system. It turns a profit. And not only the 4,500 jobs, 4,500 Pennsylvania families are right now watching this debate on pins and needles, and they're scared to death because they know if this bill gets signed into law, they're going to lose their jobs. And I just want to let those people know that I really appreciate their hard work and commitment to the state of Pennsylvania. Second reason I oppose this bill. I come from a business background. Before I came here to the General Assembly, I was the president of a corporation that had over 50 employees. I made payroll, I grew the business, I paid unemployment, I paid workers' compensation taxes. Someone has to explain to me how this makes good business sense. How does this make good business sense? And quite simply, I'm not going to go over all the numbers. You're taking an asset that you own that makes a profit, and in this instance, I believe it makes over $100 million a year. You take this asset, sell it for a one-time fee, and I don't know if it's going to be $1 billion or $800 million or what it'll be, and then you lose that income that it generates every year. How does this make good business sense? And as far as collecting the taxes, our state store system collects over $400 million worth of taxes each and every year. And my friends, they turn every dollar of the taxes that they collect into the Treasury. Now, is that going to happen if we privatize? I don't know. I'll let everybody make that decision on your own. Next, on the business side, there's a letter out from our beer distributors that they oppose House Bill 790. They oppose it. 1,200 beer distributors in the state of Pennsylvania. Small businesses, mom and pop, sons and daughters. 10 to 12,000 employees in the state in the beer distributors. I heard it said that if this bill gets enacted and signed into law, that possibly half of them are going to be put out of business. Half of our beer distributors. If I calculate that, 200 districts, 1,200 beer distributors, that's probably 6 or 7 beer distributors in each one of our districts, and half of them potentially could be put out of business. Why are we doing this to them? And the third reason, and the one that I'm really going to concentrate on, is the increased access to alcohol. And that's something I think that I know a little bit about because I spent my 18 years here in the House of Representatives really working on issues that deal with abuse and addiction. I'm going to tell you something right now, and nobody can dispute this fact. Alcohol, and listen to me closely, alcohol by far is still the #1 abused drug in this country and this state. And I'm going to say it again. Listen to me. Alcohol by far is still the #1 abused drug in this state of Pennsylvania. And another undisputable fact, wherever you have increased access, you have increased consumption. And with increased consumption, you have increased abuse, addiction, violence, crime, domestic violence, accidents, and death. You cannot dispute those facts. And I'd like to bring up a couple reports and studies that go right to the heart of that statement. And they've been mentioned before here today, but I'm going to mention them again. The Center for Disease Control, they did a report on privatization. And here's their summary, just a couple of sentences. Based on its charge to identify effective disease and injury prevention measures, the task force recommends against the privatization of alcohol sales in setting with current government control of retail sales. The finding is based on strong evidence that privatization results in increased per capita alcohol consumption, a well-established proxy for excessive consumption. A second report from the Barrett Institute, which is a well-respected institute that studies alcohol in all the states. Their recommendation on privatization from 2012, maintaining state monopolies over alcohol sales help lower alcohol outlet density, overall consumption, underage drinking, and deaths from drunk driving. A state considering changing its monopoly system to a privatized one must seriously consider the increased consumption and alcohol-related harm that will likely follow. The letters that you all got from the groups and organizations that are opposed. They've been mentioned before. I'd just like to briefly mention them. Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Mothers Against Drunk Driving opposed to House Bill 790. The Commonwealth Prevention Alliance opposed to House Bill 790. Pennsylvanians concerned about alcohol problems opposed to House Bill 790. DASPOP, which represents almost all the drug and alcohol treatment facilities across the state of Pennsylvania. There are 600 licensed facilities opposed to House Bill 790. The Pennsylvania Community Providers Association, 200 providers that do mental health and drug and alcohol, over 50,000 employees opposed to House Bill 790. I did a little research. I went back and looked on the internet. The state of Washington was the last state that privatized, just last year, I believe. I went on the internet and I looked up some of the headlines in the local newspapers around the state. And I'd like to share just the headlines with you a little bit. From the state of Washington, private retail seeing more thefts of liquor bottles. Liquor boosting much worse than first reported. And I did not cherry pick these headlines. I looked for ones that were positive and couldn't find any. Stores seeing huge spike in liquor thefts. Retail crime selling stolen booze to restaurants and bars. Teen shoplifting. Boy, there you go. Teen shoplifting. Liquor a bad mix since voters approved privatization. Shoplifting instances rise with liquor privatization. 3 Pullman businesses busted for selling alcohol to minors. Washington's stores selling liquor to try to get a handle on shoplifting. Who's to blame for Washington's failed privatization plan? My friends, those of you who have been in law enforcement, and I know there's many of you here in the General Assembly on both sides of the aisle, how could you ever be in favor of privatization in House Bill 790? You've seen firsthand the destruction, the crime, the domestic violence that alcohol abuse creates. They've been spoken about before. I want to bring them up again. The Fraternal Order of Police, over 40,000 active and retired Pennsylvania police officers, opposes House Bill 790. The Pennsylvania Police Chiefs Association opposes House Bill 790. The Pennsylvania Professional Firefighters Association opposes House Bill 790. To me, my friends, it's crystal clear. It's crystal clear. Going back to 1995, I was very lucky and fortunate enough to serve with a gentleman from Delaware County who was the Speaker of the House, Mr. Matt Ryan. And I'll tell you what, Matt was a really, really special guy. He was quite a guy. There were 12 of us on the Republican side. I think there's only 3 of us left now, Sandy and Julie. I know there were 12 on the Democrat side that came in with my class in 1995. And one of the first times I went out to dinner up in Harrisburg, Matt Ryan took us out, and we went over, some of you will remember the Maverick, and I was sitting next to a gentleman by the name of Roger Nick, who would never leave Matt's side, and Roger was a great guy. And Matt gave me a little advice at dinner, as he told the rest of the members of the Republican caucus, the freshman members. He said that whenever you put up a vote, especially a vote that's difficult and controversial as the vote that we're putting up today, you have to balance 3 things. And those 3 things are: you balance your caucus, you balance your constituents, and you balance your conscience. Those are the 3 things you balance. And if you look at this issue, talking to the members on my side of the aisle, you know what our caucus position is: a very strong pro-790. Your constituents, I talk to my constituents, and I would bet it's the same for most people in their districts. They think the price of alcohol is going to come way down if we do this, and I don't think that's going to be the case. So I'm just going to say your constituents are probably split on this issue, but this is a vote that you have to rely on your conscience most of all. And I know there's members on my side of the aisle particularly that really struggled and agonized over this vote. They struggled and agonized. I know they did. And I want to let you know, whether you're from Bucks County or Berks County or Lancaster County or wherever you're from, it's okay to be no on this bill. It's okay to follow your conscience if your conscience tells you that the increase in the access to alcohol here in Pennsylvania is not going to be good, and it's not going to be good. It's okay if you were no last week and no over the weekend and no on Monday. If you change your mind for some reason on Tuesday or Wednesday, it's okay to change back and vote no on this. My friends, I'm very passionate about this. I really am. I've seen the devastation and destruction that alcohol abuse and drug abuse can do. I've had it in my own family. I've been very open about my son's addiction. I just think this is the wrong thing to do for the state of Pennsylvania.